Hello, students of American literature. This is our second to last literature video of the semester, Toni Morrison's Recitatif. I'm going to try to keep it on the shorter side because I know you're all very busy trying to wrap up a semester of what turned into online classes. Speaking of wrapping up, for this class, there's one more paper about what you learned in the class, and that can be about just about anything. Maybe you learned how to learn online. Maybe you learned you hate learning online. Maybe you learned something new about learning. You could also write that you learned to love poetry or hate poetry, or you learned that Eugene O'Neill's an awesome playwright. Just think about it. Read your notes. What did you learn? And have a main idea. Do not make the paper a laundry list. I learned this and this and this and this and this and this. Have some sort of focus in the paper, but have fun with it, right? Have fun with it. There's no really wrong answer. And there's the essay exam, which I have sent out to you, and it does have a question you can opt in on for Recitatif and Jean Paul Lahiri's Sexy, and hopefully making the video for Sexy maybe later today, maybe tomorrow, but we'll get Recitatif up today. Today is Tuesday, I think. So Recitatif, two things I want to say about it, but first, Toni Morrison, our author, maybe one of the greatest American authors, period. Herman Melville, Toni Morrison, Eugene O'Neill, top shelf people. Toni Morrison did die a couple of years ago, but before that, she did win the Nobel Prize for Literature, and that is the biggest prize on earth for a writer. And Eugene O'Neill won that. Maybe 4 or 5 other Americans, including Bob Dylan, won the Nobel Prize for Literature. So she's like one of the greatest writers in the history of the English language. And what's cool about this story is it's set in the Hudson Valley. There's a mention of the Howard Johnsons in Kingston. I think the building is still there. And Orange County Community College and a couple other Hudson Valley sites, Annandale. So it's kind of neat that it's set maybe, about 75 miles south of our lovely Columbia Green Community College campus. So Recitatif, two things I want to say. First one, when I teach this story in the classroom, I put each of the girls' names on the board, Twyla and Roberta, and I just say, hey, tell me about them. And usually some student says, well, Twyla's white and Roberta's black, or Twyla's black, Roberta's white. And we just continue on, and I just keep building my list of, Twyla's mother danced all night. She marries a fireman with a big family. She was a waitress at Howard Johnson's. Roberta's a stepmom. Her mother brought chicken to the orphanage where they are. She's going to see Jimi Hendrix. And then about 20 minutes in, if it's going well, and it doesn't always work too well, someone says, wait a minute. Roberta's not black, Twyla's black. Because it's clear a story that one is black and one is white. And if it goes really well, a couple of students get into an argument and start making the case why one is white and one is black. Well, I'll just cut right to it. We don't know. The story does not tell. And Toni Morrison writes it in that way in order to force us. It forces our mind to explore and see what we think a black person is like and a white person. And I've had students in class, and I don't know if they don't hear themselves, but they say, no. Roberta marries a rich guy who works for IBM, so she's got to be white. Twyla lives in Newburgh, she's got to be black. And someone says, no, Roberta's going to see Jimi Hendrix. He's black, so she must be black. And people don't even hear what they're saying. And they're revealing cultural, racial stereotypes of white and black. It's really somewhat funny when it happens, but also a little disturbing. But you guys are too smart for that. None of you mentioned race in which girl is which race in your comments, and I bet in class you wouldn't have either, because you're a pretty savvy bunch, and you're all very thoughtful before things come flying out of your mouth. And it's not bad, the students who do insist one is white or black, because we want to think we know stuff. So let's cover that first. Twyla is the narrator of our story. My mother danced all night, which I think her mother has some mental health problems. She might be a stripper. I'm not sure, but she certainly dances all night. And Roberta's mother had some health problems, and they're together in an orphanage, and they don't have beautiful dead parents in the sky. Their parents are alive and can't take care of them, so somehow that makes them second-class orphans. And Roberta's mother brings chicken legs and a lot of food. White or black, I don't know. It is obviously a stereotype, the whole fried chicken thing, but plenty of people who are white eat fried chicken. So Toni Morrison, who by the way is African American, sets these traps for us. Twyla's mother is skinny. What does that mean? I don't know, but you can find yourself making a case for one or the other. Twyla lives in Newburgh as an adult, and she marries a man, and they sit in their garage, and it's a marvelous, wonderful family, and she has 4 children. And I've had students argue that clearly she lives in Newburgh, she has a big family, they hang out in their garage, she must be black. It doesn't make any sense, but in somebody's mind it does. And then the incident, it's really a genius story. At the Howard Johnsons, the Kingston Howard Johnsons, Twyla is the waitress. Roberta comes in with her friends going to see Jimi Hendrix. Now, Toni Morrison did not pick Jimi Hendrix, his name, out of a hat. Jimi Hendrix is one of the great rock stars of American history and maybe the greatest electric guitarist of all time. Jimi Hendrix was African American. However, he had a huge following of white people who loved his music, and he also had lots of white girlfriends, which made for a bit of a controversy in that time period, 50 plus years ago. So Toni Morrison picks Jimi Hendrix, and Twyla's never heard of him. Roberta's going to see him. It's still not clear. That doesn't help us, right? It doesn't help us figure out. It forces us to think we can figure it out, but it doesn't. So that's another one. And then as far as historical context, this protest in the middle of it, which sometimes goes over students' heads, the school district is doing what's called busing. What happened in American school districts, in the North at least, and in the South, school districts were literally racially segregated. White kids went to one school, black kids went to another school, period, right up until 1970. In the North, it's a little different, but school districts would be drawn in a way that most of the kids going there were black, or they would be just from the neighborhoods that were where the black community lived. And then of course the white people wind up at a different school. The white school often got more money because black people are discriminated against. Their school was not as good. There wasn't as big a tax base. So government officials decided, oh, well, we'll just integrate the schools more thoroughly, give everybody the same chance. We'll bus some white kids to the traditionally black school and black kids over to the white school. Busing. Controversial, good, bad. You can work that out in your education classes. We won't get into that. But Roberta's protesting it. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean she's white? Does that mean she's black? It means she doesn't want her kid bused to another school is all it means. But you can see how Toni Morrison sets this, I call it a trap, but a trick where we could easily fill in, oh, well, she must be. And then Twyla, she doesn't have a problem with it. She doesn't really think much about it. Oh, well, she must be one or the other. So far we have, and you saw this question in the essay exam, Roberta's mother brings lots of food, including chicken, a stereotype of black food. Twyla's mother doesn't bring food. That's a trap. Roberta marries a rich guy, a computer programmer, it seems. Is that white? Is that black? Probably the stereotype is one or the other, probably more white. Twyla's mother danced all night. What does that mean? How is Twyla's? So none of these are clear. but our minds will make them clear. So I hope I'm making that point. Our mind, when we're reading this, will pick one to be white or black, and then everything we read, it justifies our view as we read it, because we all carry around these sort of codes. We think a person is white or black based on certain characteristics, if we don't see them. And of course, in a piece of fiction, we don't see them. The busing protests, one cares about busing, the other does not. Again, there's another stereotype trap for you. Now, where the racial element gets interesting is where we'll move into the other part of the story. While they're at the orphanage, St. Bonaventure's, there's I think it's a girl there named Maggie, and Maggie can't speak, and other girls abuse her and kick her and that sort of thing, and it's very, very bad behavior. And when Twyla and Roberta meet up later in life, one of them remembers Maggie as black, and the other does not remember her as black. And does that mean one of them is black? I don't know. Another little trap that Morrison sets for us. So we have, in one starts saying, you kicked her, you of all people kicked her. And so this is getting into, to me, the other major element of this story, which is tied to race, but it's in some ways very different. And it's about one of the most fascinating topics to me in literature, memory. So we'll catch up with that in part 2.